Right, welcome back to another episode of On the Ramp, and we have what we're calling these? Are these special episodes? It's not a guest episode. It's not a chew the fat.
Well, he's a guest.
Yeah, but
I feel like a guest.
Not a garage owner guest. Quite a special guest. So I need to start by saying that this is not a sponsored episode. This has not been paid for. By LKQ Eurocar Parts. Right. But we do have someone from LKQ with us today. And we are hopefully going to be able to ask some of the questions that garages want to ask, and maybe some awkward questions, but hopefully get some interesting information out of you as well. You are, there is some good information in your head.
Yeah, and for you to ask us some questions as the garages as well.
Yeah, it goes in both directions, doesn't it? So do you want to just quickly introduce yourself?
Yeah, so thank you for having me. I can back that up. You definitely haven't paid me to be here.
Can't pay you enough.
No.
Anyway.
I'm Anthony McAteer. I'm the Group Procurement and Category Director for LKQ Eurocar Parts. And thank you for having me on.
So in plain English then, because I don't even know what that means, what do you actually do? What's your day-to-day look like?
Someone needs to explain it to me first, I think, Alex. I mean, I guess in old money, it's I'm the buyer for LKQ Eurocar Parts. So the brands, the products that we decide to buy from our suppliers to then supply into the aftermarket. If we want to really simplify it. Yeah,
and I think it's obviously the main part of what you do is buy and sell parts. So it's pretty important
to buy them.
Yeah, it's pretty important to buy the right parts and just make sure that obviously that supply chain remains strong and with the sort of correct brands that garages essentially want to be selling, don't they? And people are quite opinionated on brands. So there are some brands that people won't go anywhere near. There are some brands that people absolutely swear by. You probably see that within your own garage.
I think a lot of people don't really know
why.
The conception of good or bad, haven't they? I think when you get into that side of it, it's quite complex. But so you literally meeting with suppliers, negotiating deals, and you're kind of like the one that can sign off a order for whatever £1 million of parts.
Pretty much, yeah. And I think my background isn't procurement and category management. My role for the last 20 years in the industry has always been sales, commercial, so different sales director roles, commercial director roles, and I've been sitting this side of the table for.
How long have you been with LKQ?
I've been with LKQ for 14 years.
Oh wow, okay, right. So just briefly, what does that journey look like through LKQ then?
So joined 14 years ago from Unipart Automotive.
You're banging your hand. I told you not to bang your hand. I told you to get animated.
There you go.
Right.
So joined 14 years ago from Unipart Automotive as a key account manager.
Okay.
At that point, Eurocar Parts, as it was then, didn't really have a key account team channel. So joined when we were doing next to nothing. Then went on to become the head of key accounts, and then took on a wider role within LKQ.
So just for the listener, we've been briefed that we must say LKQ, and here's one of the directors saying ECP. So
yeah, there we go.
Permission.
Well, it's because I'm talking past tense.
That's
okay.
loud.
So I'm allowed to
so
do
technically
that.
you were right.
And I've lived this, so I'm allowed.
Okay.
And then
by the way, that noise that you can hear is a motorbike outside. We are above a garage.
Right.
There's going to be the occasional noise in the background.
How many motorbikes do you service a day?
0. Just a member of staff. So it's obnoxiously loud, so I apologise for just how loud that actually is.
I thought we were sitting in central London and the tubes were going underneath us or something.
No. It's just someone's motorbike. Anyway, sorry to interrupt. Yeah, your journey in LKQ.
Key account manager, head of key accounts, and then as that role broadened, took on responsibility for all of our B2B, so all of our trade, all of our national accounts, key accounts, whatever terminology you want to put on that. That then broadened into our B2C, our retail side of the business, which I'm sure we'll talk about at some point.
Yep.
And then our body shop and our workshop solutions. So became sort of like our trading director, if you will, that was responsible for anything that was going to any customer. So our business is split into 5 channels: our key account channel, our B2B channel, which is our independent workshops, which you guys would fall into. our B2C channel, which is our retail channel, which is effectively eurocarparts.com.
Yeah.
And
that's selling parts to the public.
Correct. That's
yeah.
selling through our website or
Yeah.
walking into one of our branches and picking something up off the shelf.
Yeah.
Then we've got our workshop solutions business, which is where our training, our technical training, our garage equipment, our diagnostics, etc. And then our body shop business, which is our LKQ coatings, but is now LKQ body shop, which is our collision side of the business.
And your role covers your current role now covers all of those aspects.
Procurement for all of that.
For all of them.
Yeah.
Okay.
So my previous role as our trading director was very much around the selling aspect of it and sitting in front of customers and through our channel.
Was that more the B2B rather than B2C, or all of it?
Mainly B2B. I mean, you don't really get to sit in front of B2C consumers, but yeah, mainly B2B.
But you're responsible for the B2B side.
Yeah, so each of those channels has a director of that channel. So we've got a director for B2C, director of B2B.
Just for clarity, B2B is business to business, isn't
business
it?
To business,
which would be garages, and B2C is business to consumer, is it?
Correct.
Yeah, which was, in this case, a car owner buying directly.
Yeah, my mum and dad wanted to buy a wiper blade, although they still think I work for Euro Car Parks and park cars for a living, I think. So, we get that a lot.
Yeah.
Which is why LKQ Euro Car Parks is much better, because that takes away that
removes
confusion
that.
of giving out parking
national car
tickets.
parks. Worldwide car parks.
So each channel has its own director in its own right, and at that time doing that role, they reported into myself. And then 18 months ago, I took the leap, was pushed, whatever way we look into it, into sitting the other side of the table, which is ultimately a big shift change for me as an individual. Never really done procurement and category management as such, but have a lot of supplier relationships through the roles that I've done. So the main thought for me personally and the business, for me going from that side to this side, is to bring our customer closer to our supplier. So I've always had a relationship with a number of our suppliers through my sales director roles in whatever guise. And now it's really taking that relationship and coming at it from a different angle, because I do procure differently to what I'm sure a procurement expert would, because I'm thinking customer back.
You're thinking more from a commercial sales side than...
Also, not to literally bring the customers to the suppliers, but for you to kind of close that gap a little bit, because you understand what the customers want more than somebody who hasn't been in that sales or sort of side of the business.
Yeah, exactly. LKQ Euro Car Parts, we're a vessel to get our supplier's product to you as the workshop. So having done the sales role and sat in front of numerous garage owners, large national chains, etc., I feel like I've got a good understanding of what it is you need and what it is you want. So really, when we have a supplier, a manufacturer talking to us, and they're always trying to sell to us, if I can't in my mind think how I can sell that or how that's of use or value to you as the workshop or the end user, I'm able to sort of go, and that doesn't work. Or we need more information or whatever else. So I think that's where I come at this slightly differently. So hopefully we're seeing some value in.
Yeah, I mean it does. It all makes sense, doesn't it? I'm sure 18 months is, in the corporate world, not a particularly long time to make significant change, but it feels logical. Feels like a good move. So that's a bit more about you, bit more about what your background is, and I didn't realise you'd been with LKQ for that long, to be honest with you.
Do I look too young?
Yeah, no. But actually, so for us then, and for the listener, you guys are a big player in the independent world, and the garages, LKQ's success is directly bound to independent garages' success. Right, we can't get away from that. So you need your customer to be successful for your success to remain. And in this landscape where there is a lot coming over the horizon that is potentially risky towards independent garages, some of those things obviously being EV and fleet, etc., that there's bits of kind of what I'd like to get out of you today is, what is LKQ's strategy over the next sort of 5 or 10 years, looking at potentially some of those problems, and try and help the listener of this podcast kind of get foresight of what some of those problems might be and what that future landscape might look like, because I imagine it's on your radar, which means it absolutely needs to be on.
So what problems are you referring to exactly?
So I mean, one of the obvious ones is EV, isn't it? We've spoke about EV before. We've had an episode just about EV. It comes up pretty much on every episode, doesn't it? But there's no escaping that EV is generating less repair revenue than a diesel, for example, which means that you might sell less parts on an EV than you're going to sell on a diesel.
Yep.
And that's becoming reasonably clear in some of the data that we're looking at, in that EV repair bills are lower, which means that garages may need to do more volume, which means that we're competing on a sort of...
So kicking off with that one then, have you had much thought into that from yourselves, as in EV, the more EVs, the less parts you're going to sell?
Yeah. So I think, coming back to the opening piece there, Alex, I think this is all around the industry getting used to being comfortable being uncomfortable. So talking about problems and issues that are coming up, but also being comfortable being uncomfortable. We are an industry where we are full of experts. You can walk into any workshop and they will tell you exactly why they are the best at what they do and why this is the way they do it and this is the only way to do it. However, we need to start being comfortable being uncomfortable, because we are going into new territory.
Yeah.
EV is just one of many of that. So firstly, EV is not going to take over ICE within the next 5-10 years.
Yeah.
This is going to be something that's, we can see come in.
Wait, when you say take over, you're talking about just in terms of just outright volume on the roads?
Correct. So
LKQ's official forecast is that it will not be the predominant fuel type on the road in the next 10 years.
Correct.
Right, okay.
I remember I've seen clips of Elon Musk even saying that even if tomorrow everybody went out and bought EV cars as the next car, it'll take 20 years for the car park to actually change to EV anyway.
Yeah.
And that's if everyone taking that leap now.
Yeah, it's less than, 8%, I think, I think Quentin said.
Of the overall car park. I think it's way less than that at the minute, yeah.
Because even though it's a high number of new cars being registered is still a percent of all
of course
the cars
it is,
on the road.
yeah.
So depending on what way you look at these numbers, you can always find a number that scares you. But actually, in reality, let's not be scared of it. This is the future that's coming at us at a pace that we can react.
But... Okay, so let's say that line in the sand is 10 years, but there comes a point up to that 10-year where it's like, this could be a big chunk of revenue that's going missing.
Yeah.
And what does that this has to be quite high up on the agenda of LKQ, in that you've got to make sure, as I said back to the start, independent garages success is critical to LKQ's success. So what are you guys, how are you guys going to navigate that and help,
Yeah, so two ways right now. So I would we heavily suggest that garages are EV ready. So at least one technician in the workshop that is EV capable. Now, in order for us to be able to say that with confidence, we've then got to be able to supply the parts that you're going to need for that car. So from an LKQ perspective, we have a team in Europe that are owning EV. So,
and how does that, is it good enough today, or is it not good enough today, would you say, in the UK?
I'd say it's okay.
What's okay, sorry?
So the parts availability. So
EV. We know it's a challenge, don't we?
And we're learning as we go.
Yeah.
Are we where we'd want to be, being transparent? Not right now. But do we have enough to service what your workshops are seeing? Yes. We have the ability to say yes more than we do no. There's now a number of what you call ICE manufacturers who are in the EV market that actually the part that's required for that vehicle, pads, discs, etc. I drive the Audi Q8 e-tron. Same for that as it is for the A4 in terms of pads and discs.
Yeah.
So,
but what's stopping? There becomes a point where some manufacturer decides to manufacture some aftermarket Tesla parts. Why is that not a thing?
Volume again, I guess.
Yeah, and patterning and the volume that's there.
So Tesla are literally making it difficult for...
I guess Tesla's one of the only brands that make a lot of things themselves, don't they? Whereas most manufacturers, they go into Bosch
they outsource it,
or
of course.
whatever, whereas Tesla are actually making it themselves, aren't they? So
yeah.
And I know we can't just focus on Tesla, but they are a big player in the EV game, aren't they?
They are. And look, when you look at what parts Tesla... run-of-the-mill service, we do the filters for it, and it's just getting the volume right as well. So, a lot of the workshops, Teslas are popping up, and they used to be saying no to it. Now they're saying yes to it, and therefore our volume forecasting is very difficult to do on that type of product. So it's available. Is it available in enough volume across our estate to make sure we're able to say yes when it comes in? So we're concentrating on Tesla, but there's one part.
Yeah.
There's also a lot of common faults on Tesla. That there's a regulator fault on the wipers that we know is a well-known fault but we can't get access.
You literally can't get the part.
Can't get the part. And then also, what isn't available for an EV at the moment is a recondition market, because the volume's not there. It's not got to that point in its life cycle yet. So this is all.
But it's going to be. It's got. You think you fast forward 5 years, and we've got all these second-hand Model 3s all over the market, and with all due respect, I mean, I'm speaking from a first-hand experience of a Tesla that I owned. My experience at the service centre left a lot to be desired. Mm-hmm. Whereas the aftermarket, the independent garages would have done a 10 times better job had it have been, available or pretty much straightforward. So there's going to come a point where that's going to actually affect the desirability of those vehicles, isn't it? If you can't fix them.
Yeah, that's why I say a good specialist. You take a Land Rover specialist. A good Land Rover specialist is good for the brands because it keeps them customers happy in that
with
brand.
the brand.
Yeah,
it keeps the residuals up, doesn't it? Which means if you buy new, you can.
Well, so if you own a Land Rover and you can't take anywhere out of the network, you're going to sell it and buy something else. Whereas if you've got a good specialist you can go to for the next 3 or 4 years, you might buy another Land Rover again.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to watch it. So
yeah, I think from an LKQ perspective, we just need to make sure we've got the parts available on the shelf to do the job.
Yeah.
Now we are doing that. We're working on our range, and we are very much looking to that to future-proof, and we need to be ahead of the demand, which is what we're doing. So at the moment, we're also sitting on a lot of parts for EV that people don't know we do because they don't take the job in.
Yeah.
So it's an evolution, which is why I talk about being comfortable, being uncomfortable, because it's about asking. So many workshops now. I mean, on the way here, I went past 3 workshops down there, and not one of them was saying they do EV.
Yeah.
Do they do EV? So I'm driving an EV, and I don't know whether to go in there or not.
No, and we speak about this a lot, is that you're going to get customers like early adopters who might want an EV specialist, and then you're going to get run-of-the-mill customers who end up buying an EV because that's what they like at the dealership. And they're not necessarily after a specialist, but they need the confidence that their existing garage can actually...
The biggest risk I see at the moment for the aftermarket on EV is the aftermarket not advertising that we do EV.
Yeah.
So
we've discussed the same thing, haven't we?
I've just thought, I was about to put my to-do list then, market EV, because we have web pages, but that's to attract new customers. But really, we should go into our existing customers. Just to let you know, we do look after EV. So if they do change a car in the next year or 2 years, they know that we're there for them still.
And a lot of EV households have EV and ICE.
Yeah.
Now, if you don't advertise you do EV,
and naturally think you don't do it,
then I'm going to find a garage that does both. And they'll do both. Yeah. And you've just lost that customer that you had. So this is the biggest threat I see at the moment to the aftermarket.
Well, it's like you said as well, we've not got a sign now that says we do EV. We've only got web pages because we're waiting for people to find us, but we're not pushing that message on to our existing customers to say, when you're ready or when you want to change, if you do, we're here, sort of thing.
One of the best strategies I've seen for that was Mark Kettle at EAC Telford. When you ring up, it says to make a petrol or diesel booking, press 1. To make an electric booking, press 2. And it's not to get people to make electric booking, it's to tell every single customer that you do electric vehicles.
Also, so that when you're making your next choice of vehicle, you go, oh, my garage does that.
They already do it. Yeah, that's add that to your to-do list. Yeah. So also, I don't know if you know these figures. I've not given you any sort of foresight of these questions at all. What percentage of the parts that you sell into the aftermarket are for diesel vehicles? I mean, does diesel make up the majority of?
Yeah.
The vast majority.
Yeah. So it's actually really difficult to, as I said before, it's really difficult in some instances to differentiate what is an EV only part. So
because it's got multi-application.
Because it's got multi-application.
Of course, any of the brake. Yeah. Okay.
So the majority of the parts we sell are still.
Yeah.
For diesel or petrol vehicles, and then but we are working on and have a way now of recognising an EV by the registration and working back from that. It's just a lot long-winded way to do it.
Yeah.
I would safely say that single percentage digit is EV.
Yeah.
Safely say that, and I don't see that changing within the next 2 years, but that's based on the pull effect as much, which is why I'm saying we need the aftermarket advertising they do EV with confidence, knowing that they can repair the job.
Do you guys sell much into the dealer network at all?
No.
Literally, really. It's just not part of. Okay.
Not really.
So actually, the independents beating the franchise dealers is quite key for you guys. The more business that they retain, the less.
So we do sell to franchise dealers, but not in the volume that we do with. We're always going to be third, fourth call for a franchise dealer.
I mean, you're competing against them, aren't you, at the end of the day? Yeah, one of the things that we are speaking about quite a bit on this podcast is the reduction in diesels. And again, it's a similar threat to the advancement of EV. The more immediate threat is the reduction of diesel
versus petrol.
Yeah, so forget EV, just push EV to the side. But diesel is the highest revenue earner for garages by a significant figure. And diesel is finished. If you look at new passenger vehicle registrations, you're down into the low single digits now. So if you think that the most popular vehicle that sort of independent garages work on from a revenue perspective is 7 or 8 years old, we know we're not that many years away from that actually becoming an immediate problem. And again, I imagine that is also going to be a problem for LKQ.
Well, I guess if you're now in a 7-year-old diesel spending money on repairs and diesel's not there, you can go to petrol. So the repairs are going to be probably similar. Because if it's wear and tear stuff like brakes and things like that.
Yeah, it's that diesels are inherently more complex and unreliable. So if you think about all of the things that exist on a diesel, like from the injectors to, I don't know.
Yeah, you've got all that on petrol now. There's obviously
the DPFs. I know you've got
PPFs and AdBlue.
Yeah, I mean, but we don't have foresight of that. The new petrol data.
Have you guys looked into that, as in reduction of diesel going into petrol? Will that affect volume of parts?
Yeah, and to be honest, for us, it neutralises itself, really. We don't see that as that's not the biggest threat to us or the aftermarket. I think also, I think we are currently in a sweet spot in the aftermarket. I think we've got the oldest car park now. 35% of the cars on the road are between 7 and 9 years old, I think.
Yeah, it's getting old.
And that's the highest it's been, I think. And probably the highest it will be, looking at
Quentin's what figures. Quentin was saying was that this period that we're in now is the most abundant period that will, as a percentage, the aftermarket between 4 and 9 years, I think Jeeper categorise it, is the highest it will ever be. Yeah,
because I think 2 years ago it was at 27%, so within 2 years it's started rocketed up. So we're at the top of that mountain. But I think from a petrol-diesel split, I don't see that impacting the aftermarket personally. When you remove EV, if it was to remain petrol or diesel, I think you'd
still be okay.
We'd all be working as we are.
Perhaps it's more in the labour when you're thinking about the DPF labour or turbo labour. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah,
we'll see how it pans out.
Until those customers that are in a diesel move to petrol.
Yeah, it's going to be difficult.
Yeah, the customers who want diesel will still find a diesel.
Yeah,
right? I mean, they're just not buying them new. They'll just find one that's 3 years old rather than buying a brand new one. So I think it's not a 7 year, 8 year problem. I think that's a 15, 16 year problem. It's still, don't get me wrong, it still needs an eye on it. It's on the runway.
Yeah,
but I think it is further down the road.
I was actually looking yesterday because we've got a vehicle hire business and wanted a new car for a manager, and literally there's no diesel cars to choose from at all. I think unless you wanted to transport a crew cab van.
Yeah, they're not making them now.
No.
I mean, so I think is it Volvo? They've completely seized all manufacturing of diesel. So
yeah,
that's right. We've got quite a bit to go through then. So let's crack on then. So one of the things that I wanted to ask was, if you're an independent garage owner, you've been approached by a network from left, right, and centre. I'm not going to mention any names of networks, but you don't have to look very far to find a network. And with the advancement of fleets and lease work, and this is something that I think is, if you look at new registrations, you can see that the lease market is growing and consumer behaviour is moving towards leasing vehicles, and the business leasing world is significantly growing. Are a lot of these fleets springing up for work provision? Are a lot of these networks springing up for sort of work provision, or to try and entice these fleets to work with a single network that provides work to the garages? Essentially, is that what this is all about, or is there a bigger picture, or is that?
So, long answer.
We've got all the time in the world.
Okay, so in short, yes. I mean, people sign up to...
That was a short answer.
Yeah. So short answer is yes. Garages will sign up to these schemes on the promise of work referral.
Yeah.
Okay. However, work back. So across Europe, the UK is the most unpopularised concept market. So in Germany, over 70% of workshops are part of a concept.
To just explain concept.
So a group, if you will. Can I name some? So Bosch Car Service, for instance, as a concept, which is a garage scheme.
So what would we refer to as like the Bosch network? That would be
independent
called a concept.
So, correct. So it's independent garages that make up a scheme.
A bigger.
So Bosch Car Service as an example.
Yep.
For us, One Tech. And many others that exist out there, but these are ultimately springing up. Not because it's new, because it's been around in Europe for forever, and actually we're just coming late to the party on it. Now, if an independent workshop, all the things we've talked about so far, so you talk about EV, you talk about diagnostics, remote diagnostics. There's a lot of things that actually, as an independent garage owner, I don't know about, and I don't have the time or the capacity to even know where to start. So what do I do? So actually, I'm ringing the garage up the road that I do have a relationship with, or I'm ringing my parts supplier, or I'm ringing somebody I know within the industry. So an element of signing up to these is actually to give them the comfort that they're part of something to ultimately, to go to for knowledge. In the UK, 2 years ago, I think it was less than 15% of independent workshops were part of a garage network or a concept. I think we're now up to just over 25%, so it's quite a big growth within a short period of time, and that's going to continue. And the two main drivers of that. One is work referral, because when you're in a fleet vehicle, or you're buying a vehicle on a PCP or whatever it may be on a lease, that leasing company may have done a deal with a garage network. They're looking for a garage network, and that garage network's always looking for new garages. To make sure they've got the footprint. Now, in a strange way, that's great for the aftermarket that is happening, because before this was happening, that vehicle was only going to the dealers. Yeah. It was only going to the franchise dealers. So we weren't seeing that in the aftermarket, either LKQ or the independent workshops.
And it was that because that was more of an organised network as such. And
they have national coverage.
And they kind of know what they're going to get.
They know what they're doing. They've got an agreed labour rate. And ultimately they're buying the vehicle from that franchise dealer mainly anyway, or leasing it through that vehicle.
Of course, yeah.
And then it's a captive market, really.
So are you seeing a shift from the franchise network to independents?
Absolutely, yeah. So,
and is this driven by the lease companies or
by LeasePlan, Arval, Lex? There's many more out there.
But I know it's block exception, but didn't manufacturers sometimes a lease still stipulate it had to be done in the dealer network? Could manufacturers come back full circle and kind of go, right, well, if we're going to sell you these cars to Lex, then you've got to support our dealer networks?
There's ways they can tailor those deals, and they've been done in the past, but that doesn't seem to be there anymore because of block exemption, and also because of the consumer behaviour. The dealers don't have the capacity to take all that on.
If there's more cars going down that channel.
And then what happens is you run the vehicle into the ground and it ends up with a bigger cost, and actually
and I guess also the lease companies don't want to let the customer down by not being able to get the vehicle repaired, because they'll go to a different lease company next time, and they'll only blame the Arval, Lex, or whoever it is that they got it from.
Or the vehicle was turning up in an unimproved workshop, which was fine, but they've got a big bill to pay. So all of a sudden their profitability on that vehicle has dwindled away. So what they've now done is they've, with the garage schemes and the concepts, and I can't remember what word you use for them. Networks popping up. That's a good thing for the independent workshop in many ways. But it all comes down to then, what's the labour rate?
Well, and from an independent perspective, something that is a little bit of a concern for me is that if these networks are successful, they're going to end up with an awful lot of networks, concepts, call them what you want. They're going to end up with a lot of power. And it's making sure, like, as a group of independent garages, that we are well looked after. Because if you look at the state of the industry today, low pay, struggling to employ, I mean, a lot of this has stemmed from garages not making the profit they need to make to reinvest back into the businesses.
I mean, so they've got a lot of power. They haven't about good garages, though, have they? And they've got the flip side of it. So,
but this is my worry. It's like a chicken and egg thing, isn't it? If a lot of work moves in this direction and the work provider becomes, well, I don't need you, I'll just use the next garage, and that's a big chunk of work.
But the other side of it is, I'd say that if you spoke to 8 out of 10 garages, they'd all say, I don't want your lease work.
Yeah.
And
I think it's the power at the moment is in the aftermarket. So this is where you want everyone to stay on a page where you're not accepting £30 an hour labour rate, £25 an hour labour rate, whatever it is these deals are coming in on, but also having a reality of what is an agreeable rate based on volume, because this is where the argument will come. Will you get £100 an hour labour rate? Questionable.
Well, it's all about cost to serve, isn't it? And if the customer acquisition is expensive, dealing with an individual retail customer, there's a cost to that. So it's got to make sense. Yeah, the garage has got to be reasonable. You can't expect full price when you're being literally provided the work, but the lease company also has to have a reality and their expectation needs setting. That garages aren't going to, don't get me wrong, you're going to find garages who are going to accept £50 an hour, £45 an hour, whatever, but they're garages that you literally cannot invest. Mm-hmm. You're going to be working from a reducing pool of garages. That's not sustainable. So I guess the question I'm asking is, how can we as a community of independent garages just make sure that works for the garages as well? And it's that which is...
Yeah, and there are a number of garage schemes out there. Not all offer work referral, and those that do, it's about having that conversation. Don't sign up to a garage scheme where you're going to be contracted to £35 an hour labour rate or whatever it may be. You don't have to do that. And at the moment, with a lot of the way the leasing contracts work, is they'll still be able to send their vehicle to you because they don't have the coverage across the country. So
you don't need to be part of a scheme to have the work.
Correct. Yeah. The power is still in the aftermarket.
Yeah.
But you are right. The more garages every day, every week, every month, every year that sign up to this, the power becomes less.
It feels like there's more and more pulling away from them than they're going in, but yes, you don't know.
But we don't have sight of the with the garages that we're surrounded with are forward-thinking, invested garages with that mindset. But that's 1% of the garages, really.
And I think also when you're signing up to a garage concept, it should never just be for work referral. If you're just signing up for work referral, then you're possibly
wrong concept.
You're signing the contract with the devil to some extent, because you're putting a lot of your business eggs in one basket.
Yeah.
It needs to be about the other things that ultimately add value to your business. Well, that's where I think a lot of these schemes that exist, and when you look at the evolution of the garage networks and schemes that have happened in the UK over the last 5 years, they're a much better thing to sign up to for an independent workshop. It's no longer around, right, what can the garage give to me? It's around, what can I give to the garage from a lot of the concepts that are out there.
Yeah, that has definitely been a shift, hasn't it, in that approach. It's more about what they can do for the garage rather than just discounts on buying some Bosch time machines or something.
Yeah, exactly. And to be honest, being transparent, LKQ Euro Car Parts, we got it wrong. We did this 7-8 years ago under the banner of Auto First.
Oh yeah.
I've had counselling to try and forget that, but it wasn't very good.
Is that the red branded?
Red and white branded. Yeah. Thanks for that. That's another therapy session I'm going to need to pay for. But we didn't do it very well, because we did come at it from our point of view. This is what we want. This is what we think is going to be right. And as a result, it didn't really get
maybe mirroring traction. What the other ones were out there as well, rather than thinking that's outside the box with a
copy and paste
scheme.
a little bit, and we took a long time to come back to market with ours. And that's purely just because we didn't want to make the same mistakes we made again. We also didn't want to just copy and paste what already exists out there. And we wanted to understand what the garage owner needs.
Yeah.
So what we've tried to do is build something that's agnostic, that is just a whole suite of different things that connects the workshop into whatever they want for their workshop. We don't say, go and have, to be part of this, you have to buy this, you have to spend this. No. What works for you? Is it this oil provider? Is it this filtration provider? Because we're just a distributor, on this. So we're not asking you to change your habits. We just want to enhance your habits by connecting you with a supplier, offering you experience with the training and technical advice and everything else that's there, that you might not necessarily known is there if you weren't part of a concept.
How much of it is for you guys is also for retention of the customer? Is that one of the bigger things?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
let's be.
No, not. Yeah, and that is. It's like saying a customer service plan for your car, isn't it? Almost, it's you want to retain that customer, but you're not. It's not like they're being retained out of. Not like they don't want to be retained. They're not going to stay with you, but they don't want to still.
Yeah, you still got to fight. But I also think one of the big things about any of these concepts is, if they have some sort of event and you get to meet other garage owners and there's some sort of community aspect to it, I think that can be
huge,
highly super valuable. So in that respect, it's a positive.
Yeah, we've often said if you started a garage now and you joined a good network good garage management software and a good scheme, then
you're
going to
halfway
be flying
there.
within you leapfrog so many years basically of just kind of doing it on your own,
insular,
own pace.
Yeah, and from our point of view, we're not doing this to handcuff people to us.
No, exactly.
You know, they hold the handcuff. Don't get me wrong, but they hold the key as well.
Yeah.
But you have to make sure that you're adding value to the garage.
Mm-hmm.
If they just see us as a transactional parts partner, that's going to be transactional. You're going to lose that, win and lose that customer 12 times a year.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if you can be constantly seen to be adding value to them, I think that's where what we strive to do is just be more than a parts provider, because that's ultimately what keeps the industry moving forward. I mean, that you've got Garage Hive, and Garage Hive is a fantastic community, but why did you create a community rather than just have it as a GMS provider?
Yeah, well, for all the obvious reasons, it's so much more, becomes so much more than just an invoicing system, doesn't it? So yeah, same. I guess it's the same logic, isn't it?
Yeah, and when your Garage Hive customer has a problem, they're not ringing Garage Hive, they're ringing another Garage Hive user.
Well, it's for it. It's
probably. I'm guessing.
I mean, we do get that, and it's quite incredible. We're quite lucky in that respect. But a lot of it is within the community forum. It does about 25% of our support, which is pretty.
And
cool.
Also, what's the word? Showcasing the software. Often you'll get one garage go to another garage for them to look at the system.
Yeah.
And what I also like about communities and our One Tech community is you get the good, but you also get the bad. But when you get the bad, it's from a number of areas. It's not just one workshop telling you something that you're terrible at or that you could be doing better. They've almost come together to say, are you seeing this? Are you seeing this? Right, okay, it's worth raising. And then you know when you're hearing it from one of your own community, you go, now this is we need to look into this.
I guess that, and I think that garage owners listening to this, I think that they need to understand that they've got that power to do that. And if you are part of a network, don't just put a badge above your door and say you're part of a network. Like, get involved with the network and steer the network. Because if they start providing you work under their terms that have been negotiated on behalf of the lease without involving the garage owners in that conversation, then, like you said, you're going to reach a point where it's going to be really difficult to undo.
Yeah, and do you know what, the amount of workshops I've been in over the last however many years, and there'll be a fleet job there, and they go, I don't want to do that job. Well, don't do that.
So we do fleet, and we love fleet, and Tim, and I think if you understand fleet, it's one of our highest average invoice value jobs. Fleet is,
it can work.
Yeah.
And also a lot of the fleet drivers and some of the larger council fleets, etc. They'll have passenger car vehicles that will come in as well.
Yeah, you get the pass benefit.
We always try and focus on that, kind of adopt the same process, because often it was like, they're just a fleet car, chuck the key in the box and we'll do it later sort of thing. Whereas if you're actually that customer will have,
because they're probably local
personal
to you,
cars,
aren't they?
So it's like free, and if you look at the cost of acquiring a customer, that's the other thing. I think cost per leads, like average probably for our industry, is sort of £45, and then to convert leads probably 1 in 4. So a new customer is at least like 140, 150 quid based on active marketing. So
and the strongest part, the strongest marketing tool we all have is word of mouth, and that's free. And if you're a fleet vehicle, you've been into somewhere and you've had an unbelievable experience, or an experience you weren't expecting because you're a fleet driver. That's what you're going to go and tell your friends and
that's what we use fleet sometimes for when we're expanding or opening a new site. If you look at the cost of acquiring new customers versus the cost of getting the customers through the door by another party sort of thing. Then I
know a few people have got that same tactic as well. Open a new site,
turn that tap on.
How much would that cost you to get that work through the door in the first place? So okay, right. Let's keep moving on.
Next thing was which leads kind of into it is, what challenges do you see for independent garages moving forward?
I would say the remote diagnostic piece is certainly something that's coming fast at us, to diagnose faults on vehicles and have all of the kit available in the workshop. That if you did buy everything that did every job, you're probably talking a 6-figure investment in all of the diag equipment that's out there. But the solution to that is remote diagnostics, where you're then making a call to somebody, ourselves or anyone else that offers it, but being comfortable doing that because you've never had to do that before.
Do you do remote? Have you done anything remote?
I've done the odd bit for like programming the module if it's something completely different to what we don't know, but most of the stuff we do ourselves, to be fair. How on the back of that, are you seeing garages? Do you sort of track amount of garages retiring and closing versus new ones opening?
Good question. I'm sure we do. I don't know off the top of my head, but yeah, I mean, we do see a lot of garages closing. Certainly during COVID, there was a lot that went into COVID that didn't come out of COVID.
Saying it's a big baby boomer time at the minute where there's lots of people at that age that want to retire, not necessarily want to pass it down to whatever. So there's a huge amount of, I see garages that are for sale, and there's every week you're getting loads sent through. But
Are you seeing a consolidation? Do you expect a consolidation over? So your net number of customers may reduce, but the average spend is going to increase.
It's going to go up, isn't it? Because the car park will be the same, won't it?
Less garages.
And I think that's where something to keep an eye on. Not necessarily concerned about it because the car park's still
the revenue is the same, isn't it?
But for us, I think, from how the market is looking at the moment, there's a lot of consolidation. So you see some of the larger national chains.
Yeah, they're on it. They've been on it, aren't they?
They're really on it. And the thing they do really well is actually online presence as well. So they will all of a sudden take an acquisition of a local independent workshop that's been there forever but has never had a website. They'll turn it into a Halfords, Pro Tyre, Quick Fit, whatever you may be, and all of a sudden that workshop's got a lot more volume going for it because the digital journey's there.
Yeah.
Which is actually one of the second biggest things I see as a threat to the aftermarket, which is visibility. Too many workshops, too many independent workshops are invisible. The type of journeys we now do since COVID is a lot less mileage driven. You're doing the school run, you're doing the supermarket, you're doing the gym, whatever else you're doing, but you're not necessarily doing the commute as often. And if you're doing the commute, it's the regular commute and not to somewhere else, because if a journey is too far, it's now a Teams call.
Yeah.
And therefore, garages who don't have an online presence have become invisible.
Yeah.
Now, as a consumer, I don't measure myself, but I'd argue that 99% of anything I buy starts online.
Yeah.
I guess you've got the people in the camp that are, they've been in the trade, own a garage for years. They might be kind of 50 plus and they're not bothered by it. But I'd imagine any garages that are opening, the first thing they'll be doing is website.
And do you know what? That's one of the biggest challenges to us is the average age demographic of the owner in our industry is, I think, 50 plus. Right. Now, it's being adaptive to change, and I keep saying it, but this is around them being comfortable, being uncomfortable. No one's expecting them to be an IT guru. No one's expecting them to be digital savvy, but they should be open to learning and open to questioning about, well, okay, that paper diary. Okay.
I've always done it this way, but do I have to always do it this way?
Yeah, and there's something we use internally quite a lot is, what got you here won't get you there.
Yeah.
And that's where we are in the aftermarket. And I think the digital journey piece, digital presence, how we interact with our customers, how you say hello, how you say goodbye, how you say thank you, that's not really through voice.
That average age is pretty staggering, isn't it?
Because I'll say that most people in that group aren't bothered, though, about the next thing.
Yeah.
Just walking to retirement.
We've just taken on a garage found in 1972, and literally everything is paper. Like the diary's paper, and there's a filing cabinet for everything, and it's crazy.
Yeah.
But that's you've got to think that consolidation is going to accept. If that is the average age, that means that at least half of them are obviously older.
Baby boomer industry thing.
Yeah, 60 to 70. If they've not got family, any children to pass it on to.
And even if they have got family, the property could be worth more in flats talked about. Than it would be.
So if you are ambitious, there's opportunity, actually.
Tons,
ample opportunity.
But the biggest problem is the value. Then people overvalue what they've got.
Well, that doesn't last long, though. From experience. We've both been on this journey where you put yourself out there to buy something, forum post, a LinkedIn post, whatever, and you're going to get people approaching you. I want to sell. I'm doing 4 times revenue is my valuation. I want £1 million for my. It doesn't take them long to actually realise that that's probably not a realistic valuation. There's a conversation to be had then.
Yeah, most people in many industries of a small business, they're a profitable job rather than a business.
An actual business. Yeah. Okay. You mentioned earlier. Block exemption. Is this? Are we all tied up with block exemption? Is it? How long is it in for? Like, is there any risks of block exemption coming up? Because I never really valued block exemption until I started talking to companies internationally with Garage Hive, and you start speaking, and they don't have block exemption. They don't have that protection that we've got. So How does that look? And I know you guys do a lot of work around block exemption because it's obviously really important to you guys. But what's that looking like?
I'll probably round up exactly what block exemption is in a few words.
Yeah, so I mean, block exemption is there to protect us and make sure that we can provide parts to the aftermarket. That doesn't mean the OE won't let it come into the aftermarket, and we do so under regulation, so the parts meet a certain criteria that is effectively OE matching or.
And from a garage, is it mainly that they've got access to the information and it doesn't void a warranty?
Yeah, there's no warranty void and those conversations.
Yeah, I remember when I first started 2010, and as a Vauxhall specialist, we promoted that we could do the same as the dealer. We could do software updates, and the dealer was like, they can't say that, and they literally was complaining to Vauxhall. And they had no idea, even this is 2010, that we could actually go out and do that.
Yeah.
So is it just a European thing? Is it a European driven?
Yeah, it's a European driven. So at the minute, with Brexit, the dangers with Brexit has been, well, what does the UK do?
We pick and choose what we want to stick with, don't we?
Pretty much, yeah. And SERMI's on its way, but I can't remember what SERMI means. We can edit that in. I've got it.
What the acronym?
Yeah.
Google it.
No idea.
Yeah. If you're listening, Google it. But effectively, we're late to the party on this. So each country has been doing this in Europe. We have a UK regulator.
Is this on SERMI now or block exemption? Or
yeah. So it will almost work with
side by side.
Yep. So block exemption, I think we're now protected for another 7 years, I think.
Oh, okay. And that's quite recent.
Yeah, I think that was back in the last year.
Okay.
Again, we can Google that and put the right.
Just to give the listener an appreciation for block exemption, is this garage owner that I spoke to outside of Europe, they literally can't work on cars within warranty. They can't do it. So they have to wait for the car to come into the aftermarket to actually be able to work on that car.
Even if it's brakes or tyres?
I didn't go into that level of detail, but I imagine there's some
servicing, wasn't it?
I think it's anything that would be classed as affecting the warranty or voiding the warranty. So, but you imagine it's very difficult for a car owner to get it serviced at the dealership and then get brakes done somewhere else. That divide is just not going to.
It's a monopoly, isn't it?
Yeah,
it really is a monopoly.
It stays in the dealer. So we are very fortunate to have.
Yeah, really lucky. I didn't realise. So SERMI. Then moving on to SERMI. Then have you just googled it?
Yeah, I still can't.
Okay, still can't figure it out. Yeah, this is how confusing SERMI is.
Over there.
Yeah.
Security related repair and maintenance information.
So
it rolls off the tongue.
Yeah, beautiful. Right. Yeah.
And this is around having access effectively. So this is a remote diagnostics piece as well. You know.
Yeah.
The OE's opening up access to the vehicle data.
Wind diagrams and.
Yeah. And if they had it their way, we wouldn't have any visibility of it. Your car would come in, you'd put your diag into it, and it would return a blank.
There's a big thing with Autologic, wasn't there, in providing the technical information. They got done by that, didn't they? Yeah.
What? Because they shouldn't have been doing it.
Yeah, it's something about you can have it yourself, but you can't then reshare that information under certain conditions.
So is SERMI the scheme put together on behalf of independent garages to gain access to this?
Yes.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, and we're a late adapter, I think.
Is in the UK.
The UK, yeah. So we've got the RMI are representing the UK for it, and it's currently sitting with UCAS, I think, for approval. At which point, then we can then tie in and be part of the SERMI group with other regions and other countries. But that's been ongoing for over 2 years. Well, I think coming up to 2 years.
So what's the work? What I mean, is it? Are we going to be protected, or is there still a risk that it can go wrong?
No, we'll be protected, but it's in the UK. It's going to be voluntary. So we will need the bodies of like the IAAF, the SMMT to continue doing what we're doing to talk about it, to opt in. It's an opt-in scheme.
From a garage's perspective, they opt in to be part of the scheme. So that'd be like opting into block exemption then?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, so this really does kind of need to be on the radar of garages then that it's going to affect.
Yeah, and the reason why it probably isn't is because it's not concrete anywhere yet, right? It needs to be approved by UCAS, and then we need to have it. Then there'll be a rollout scheme, I'm sure, from the RMI, who will be great at doing this. They'll be visible, supported by all the local bodies in the industry, and you'll start to see it more and more. The reason why it's almost not been talked about is because no one knows. Yeah, and if it does get declined at any point, you've just spent all that time worrying people or educating people on something that's not going to come through. So I think, maybe I can imagine, Alex, in 6 months' time, you'll do a SERMI podcast. Because that's where
it's going to become more relevant.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Whereas at the moment, this will be the bit that everyone's fast forwarding because it's not really that interesting.
So I think that covers off some of the, just picking your brain for some of the general information and what's on the horizon for garage owners. So I want to start then by probably asking you a few awkward questions. Some of the questions that some of the listeners want to begging me to ask. So one of the most common complaints, right, is that occasionally, or more often than occasionally, is that a garage's customer, and it's not just LKQ that this happens. This applies. To be fair, this applies to most of the suppliers. Sometimes their customer can buy the part cheaper than the garage can, and then from a garage owner's perspective, who might be spending 10, 20, 30,000 pound a month, and then the general puncher off the street can just go and buy a coil spring for £5 cheaper than they can. That causes an awful lot of frustration. So why does that happen? And are LKQ doing anything about it, or is it here to stay? Or let's just hear it from the horse's mouth, so to speak. I don't know if you're directly responsible for this, by the way, but you're getting it anyway.
Yeah, I'll happily take the question.
Yeah,
because
I'll pass that one on.
I take it daily anyway. Yeah. So firstly, you're right. This isn't an LKQ Euro car parts issue. This is an industry-wide issue for those others that do retail, car parts. We've actually done an awful lot over the last 3 years on this, and I can say that because I have been part of that team that's been doing that. So I mentioned at the beginning how our business is structured with our B2C channel and our B2B
the 5
channel
channels.
being the 5 channels, and then our B2B and B2C are part of that. We've worked really hard on distinguishing brand usage within both to try and remove this conflict.
So one brand's only for that sector, one's for that sector.
Correct.
Okay.
So within retail, we've launched Aldora.
Is that the same thing in a different box though?
Well, so within retail, we've launched Aldora, which is our braking and filtration range, which isn't available in trade. But also from a price point from those brands that are across, I would say we operate a portfolio of over 180,000 parts. So we're never going to be the cheapest all the time for every workshop, and your Pareto and your profile is going to change. So the first thing I would say is when you're seeing a part online cheaper than what you can buy it as a workshop, so long as you're a volume customer, if you use us once a year and you can buy cheaper online,
it's fair enough.
Sorry, my loyalty isn't to you as yours isn't to me. But if you're a regular workshop customer with us and you are finding that, then you should absolutely raise it with your local branch. And my commitment is that will be looked at, and in the main, I've never seen conflict not removed, because it normally falls from where the Pareto is. Now, if we're doing something aggressive online, that's slightly different because we might not have done something in the trade at the right time. But ultimately, we try and move these things in line with each other. We didn't used to do that. So 3 years ago,
you'd have an extreme swing.
We'd have a 20% off everything online or 25% off everything offline, and then trade would stay as it was. There was no commonality between the two. Whereas now we have them linked. When we do one in, we don't do it when we do a trade, when we're doing retail. But when we do retail, we make sure trade's been reflected as well. So that it removes the noise. Now, I can say this with confidence because it was my email and phone that was ringing 3 years ago. This was a daily, hourly conversation. It felt like anyway for our account management team. This year in particular, and it's not just because I'm in different roles, but I still have that connectivity with
got a new phone number.
Yeah, phone ring.
Exactly. Yeah,
problem's fixed.
Just turned it off. You can only contact me via Teams now. It's definitely, we've definitely done an awful lot there.
So the strategy is then that if it's a loyal customer to ECP and this event does happen, you should be speaking to your branch because it shouldn't be happening.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
But is there an element of if I think electrician buying from his wholesaler, I dare say I could go online and buy a reel of cable or some light switches cheaper than he can because I've shopped around different websites. And is there an element of like the service you're giving is far outweighing an online service given? Yeah,
and I'm happy to be over transparent on this. There's a cost to serve element, right? So the retail customer is going on our website, clicking and collecting, coming into our branch, and we've just got to hand it over to him. In the main, an independent workshop, we have to put that in a van and drive it to the location.
Fuel, pay the driver.
Yeah, and you can order a bulb from us, and we'll get that bulb to you within our agreed SLA. Most of the time, for anyone's listening, going, "I wish you hit your SLA," but most of the time, I was aiming at you. Alex, to be fair, but so the cost to serve is far higher for our independent workshop channel as well. So there is that balancing act internally to make sure that we're keeping.
I imagine there's a good bit of conflict between those two. That must be hard to manage in reality.
Oh yeah, I mean they're two fire individuals as well. So that makes those meetings even more fun, and they've been
So you
really...
could just say to the garages that complain, "Was buy online, then go pick it up."
Well, yeah, and I think from our,
don't say that.
From our point of view as well, the volume we do in retail also helps what we're able to do.
Is retail growing?
Yeah.
Like,
What percentage is? I was going to ask that. What is percentage of retail versus? If you can say that or know that.
Yeah, so retail's 1/3 of the volume of.
So it's a big thing then, yeah.
Yeah, it's a considerable.
Is it a bigger? Is it growing? Is it? Yeah. I mean, there is the really frustrating thing for me is that if they're doing it to do it on the drive because they're a bit of a hobbyist, fine, right, fine. It's not ideal for the industry, but I get that. But garages who are then fitting the parts that are being bought by customers, they're the problem for me. That is the real problem.
Yeah, and I agree. I think a lot of our retail, though, is what I would call grey trade. So this is your weekend mechanic, your staff doing their own jobs after hours. And that's I would argue that's... When you look at the parts that we sell, the mechanical parts that we sell online, there is no way that consumer is doing that on their drive.
I'd love to have insight that.
Is that an inclining or declining market, or
our product mix is definitely changing because you can't even do braking now on your drive because you need some diag to reset, etc. Right?
Certain calipers,
So and even bulbs to some extent,
bumper off or
exactly. It's just so. The product mix is definitely changing, which is why you see us diversifying to different things on our website. I think 2 years ago, paddling pools, we did like over 1 million paddling pools, which was just ridiculous, right?
It's 40 degrees, that's why.
Yeah, well, yeah. And we now do, we have a leisure and marine side of our business, so we do garden, furniture, and everything else that's on there, and it just drives that extra consumer in. But like I say, I very much see our retail consumer as the grey trade for our.
I've never really thought about that, but that's so obvious, isn't it?
Yeah, I guess that's. Do you know what element of retail is that? How do you actually track that though?
You can't.
So, and this is where we could do and have debated with having like a trade club.
Yeah, but then, so you can actually distinguish retail
like
from
B&Q. You
correct.
Get your little trade card or.
But if we do that, this question gets even more awkward, right?
Yeah.
So you're then supporting it even more to a certain degree.
Supporting staff doing jobs on the side.
Exactly. So it's trying to be everything for everyone, knowing that you're not going to keep everyone
impossible.
happy. Exactly.
It is
right.
Impossible.
So it's a balancing act.
Okay, understood. Thank you for answering that.
Thank you for asking that.
Yeah, you didn't mean that.
No, I didn't.
One of the things that it's certainly something that Lindlers have done. I think we've done quite well over the last few years is improve our relationships with suppliers and maximise on those relationships with things like rebate schemes and point schemes and just improving SLAs and just making it work more for us. Do you have any advice? So let's say someone is just shopping around and they're just buying parts based on the cheapest price available to them, which is it's a strategy that lots of people do. I'm definitely seeing people moving away from that strategy more towards a relationship-based one. But what are they missing out on in terms of things like rebates and stuff? Because there can be significant bottom line revenue, can't it, for the garage?
And what do you see the mix as of the customers that are shopping around price conscious versus just pick up the phone and saying, "Can you send me this?"
Yeah, so that's a good question. How to make friends and alienate people. I'm about to demonstrate. I think really the starting point has to be with the workshop. It has to be with what are you looking to achieve over whatever period you look at. Let's say a year. So at the beginning of the year, you say, right, this is what I want my P&L to look like for this year, and this is what I need profitability out of 2024. And then work back from that. So work with your supplier to say, okay, what rebate have you got based on the volume that I'm building into my plan? And have that relationship.
When you say volume, that's literally if we were to spend this with you, what can you do for us?
Yeah, so over that, in your P&L, you will know what you should be buying from a parts perspective, what you're expecting to buy from a parts perspective, because you'll know what markup you're putting on it.
So
and then
pretty
work back from
accurately.
that and say, if I can spend this, what can you give me? And almost you could have a beauty parade on that with all the suppliers and say, right, okay, well actually you're the one that makes me the most profit based on my P&L for my workshop. You offer me the same level of service, you offer everything else that's the same, but actually I'm going to make more. So therefore, that's the route I'm going to go.
So how big does that garage need to be for you to take them seriously then? Because there might be someone sitting there thinking, all right, I spend $6,000 a month.
Well, that's quite a bit.
Yeah.
Listen, that I'll say.
Yeah,
I'd say £6 a fairly decent spend.
Yeah,
isn't it?
anyone with one
Just
ramp.
because you're out there spending £40.
Sorry,
Yeah, I know.
Pretty big guy.
I'm sorry.
You said it, not me. But you are
Detached
absolutely
from
right.
reality.
His attitude there is ridiculous.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
No, and this, yeah, we do all. You know,
I don't know.
I think one ramp garage can spend somewhere between £1,500 and £3,000 a month on parts, depending on the type of jobs they do. So,
and you would encourage them to? Would they ring their branch presumably and say, "Look,
make contact with a branch and say, look, I want to talk to you about a rebate," because they might already be on one, but it hasn't been reviewed because it's not proactively from our side. We might have not done our job properly, or might have not been something from your side, or And the one thing that I think devalues us as an industry is that ringing around piece, because it's actually undervaluing the most costly commodity you all have, which is time.
Yeah.
I get it if you're doing a quick look up between online catalogues maybe, but when you're ringing around and you are making 2 or 3 phone calls, there's got to come a point where you are undervaluing your own time, whether it be yours as the owner or somebody you're employing to do that. You should take the time at a period of time during the year to sit down with your part supplier and have a transparent conversation. That way then, from our point of view, we'd love to be in a relationship like that, because then we know what we're budgeting for, what we can expect from those workshops, what we can commit to, because it's consistent and you can manage consistency. What you can't manage is when a workshop's using you all week, and then you don't hear from them for 2 weeks because what they've done is a week here, week there, and not telling you the real reason why.
I guess if it looks at it on the broader scheme, not just garages and business in general, if all businesses stopped asking for pricing, shopping around, then everyone's going to put their prices up, and
there's an element of keeping
competition.
People,
people being on their toes to a certain degree, haven't they?
I agree, and I totally agree with that. Believe it or not, just not on a daily basis.
No, for everything.
I think every month, you can have monthly reviews, you can have quarterly reviews. If you're in a relationship and it gets to a point where you're uncomfortable that you are being overcharged or you have been overcharged, and you should be in a relationship where that can be backdated. You can put that right in a relationship. If it's a transaction,
how many years?
How much you owe us?
Yeah.
So if a garage has no rebate in place, and they think, oh, this sounds interesting, I'm going to ring the branch up. Do you? And it's not necessarily. Let's say you set a spend goal, and if you reach the spend goal, we'll give you a rebate. Is there always a mechanism that they can apply their own rebate, which obviously is might be an uplifting cost for them? To rebate back, yeah. Yes. Is that always an option to customers that you work with, or?
I wouldn't say it's always an option.
Yeah.
If you're spending probably over £3,000 a month, that's probably
a conversation that can be had.
Yeah.
Because I think it's. I mean, we didn't do this. I mean, it's quite a recent thing for us, but when you do actually add that uplift to part, so there's 2 types of rebate, isn't there? There's a rebate for being rewarded for me committing spend to you, and you say, right, you can have a percentage back for the loyalty.
Yep.
And the cost doesn't increase and the costs are comparable to other suppliers. And then there is, right, I want you to increase our prices by 5%, and I want you to give me that money back at the end of the quarter, end of the month, because it's like hidden profit for an operating garage.
Yep.
But you then have to consider that the prices are now, they're not apples to apples, are they?
And in particular, that goes against us in a number of instances, because the person looking up and ordering the parts isn't the one who's had that conversation.
But then that's where, as the business owner, you need to then have a commitment to the supplier.
Alex has had a new Sonos speaker.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, yeah, and I think, and also why I think that is a good model is because a lot of the workshops do cost plus.
Yes. I was going to say, you should probably explain why that works, because people might listen to it and go, hang on a minute, so you're charging more and I make more money. How's that work?
Yeah, well, there's the hidden margin, obviously, which comes straight back. So your staff are adding onto an inflated price, which they don't need to be aware of it, do they? No. And that comes straight back to the business, straight onto the bottom line. But because you're pricing up from a higher place anyway on cost plus, the actual net revenue from that transaction will be higher anyway, because the part's more expensive. That's the ironic thing.
It doesn't work is if your sale price is being controlled by an external factor like fleet.
Yeah, it doesn't work in the fleet world. Yeah.
Or fixed price servicing. So we're very conscious on our oils and filters, best price, because we're fixed price servicing. So
the gain is actually in a lower price initially.
Yeah.
Okay, rebate. I think rebate and that again, potentially approaching your supplier if you don't have that relationship that's led on value. Approach your supplier, see what they come back with.
Yeah, and I think also it shouldn't all come down to price, but a lot of the time it does. So if price is the number one importance to you,
go online.
Yeah, to another factor
on a sales weekend.
But have the conversation. Say, look, I'm going to buy on price.
Yeah.
I don't want any of the value add around.
So I guess if you're dealing with like car sales prep centres or something like that, it's price.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
No.
I think sometimes, and this is where you'd love to be able to go around every single workshop in the UK and have this one-to-one conversation. Just be honest on what you want. Yeah. So if it's just price and that's all you want your price, you want your part on time, just tell us.
Yeah.
But if we want all the other bits to go with it, like all the other things we do, training and what, have that conversation. But then don't also expect price to be absolutely where rock bottom, because things come at a cost. Let's be really transparent. Profit isn't a dirty word. Everyone in the industry has to make profit, and we're no exception. Now, the type of service we offer to customers can vary depending on the price we then charge. We will always try and be competitive, and I believe we are in the main competitive. But are we always cheapest, and will we always be cheapest? No. But will I put my hand on my heart and say we can offer the best support and training and everything else? Yes.
The complete package.
The complete package. And that's where I think we have to, that's our role in the industry, is to support the aftermarket.
It's actually nice into the next question.
Before we ask that, the final question, I just want to ask another awkward question, which I've just thought about, and this is probably right in your realms. Sometimes, with warranties can be a bit of a nightmare, a bit of a pain in the arse. We've all had that part fail, and fine. If you have a strong relationship with the supplier, that tends to be less painful. But then you put in a labour claim, and you're dealing with some parts manufacturer who's agreed £30 an hour labour claim, or whatever absolute insulting nonsense it is that they think that garages that fit in their parts are worth per hour. Is there going to be any change to that, or what's driving that? Because it's such a disconnected value.
Yeah.
And you're head of procurement, so this is.
Do you know what? It's yeah, you're right. We haven't had this conversation, but I have had this conversation last week internally. So there's an element where I think we've got where we are now. We're facing into. We can't be saying, and I've said it a couple of times on this, and we'll continue to say, the most undervalued commodity in the aftermarket is time and labour. Mm-hmm. Yet we're then going to pay £30 an hour for. So I can't be saying
one thing
and doing another. So our commitment as LKQ Car Parts is we are going to be revisiting what our labour rate is. Now, we've actually started consulting a couple of workshops. Sorry, not you guys, but happy to have that conversation on what
£100 now?
Yeah, well,
do it now.
That'll be why. That's why I kept my car keys in my pocket, because Alex would have had all 4 tyres off. But, about what is fair, and also, we don't know. We know what we think is fair, but then you might not have that. So as a business, we are absolutely going to address that. And I didn't do that conversation last week because I knew I was coming today and sitting here to get grilled by you guys. That's just because it felt wrong. I was put in a situation where I'm saying one thing, and then it's being pointed out to me by a customer, but you only pay me.
And I think that even selfishly from your perspective, it's crazy that you build up these great relationships, and then it can just be undone based on that.
100%.
Do you know what I mean? It's madness,
so
isn't it?
What about, because there must be a lot of, and I know as being a technician, that that warranty claim might not be down to a parts failure.
I mean, there's going to be that.
Yeah, so how do you kind of, that must be something that you've been faced with. And it's,
all the time. And you know what, this is where the relationship piece comes. If you're a transactional customer and you've dealt with us once every 6 months or 7 months, that's quite an easy one to do, right? You go, well, if I don't know if the part wasn't at fault and you're now just asking us to pay it, no.
Are you obliged to kind of cover warranty labour, or is it?
No.
No, so it's something you just kind of just.
Yeah, you're not obliged to, especially if the part isn't at fault.
So does the labour come from you guys or from the manufacturer? Do you claim back from the manufacturer?
So if the part is at fault, we will claim from the manufacturer.
Okay.
If the part is not at fault but we pay anyway, that's on us.
And how often does that happen where you're not getting that?
But why should you pay if it's not the?
Well, because sometimes
because we have the relationship, and then you're telling me, oh, well, I'm telling you it is the part.
Oh, right. So literally, that's if we're saying it is the part and you don't think it is, you can still.
Or the manufacturer said that isn't. That's a fitting error or whatever.
I guess it's a bit like us refunding a customer when you know you're not in the wrong, but to save relationship, you just do it anyway.
Yeah, and to be honest, the majority of what we write off from a warranty is on that basis, is on a relationship to go, okay, now you track that, right? So if you're doing it every month to us, I'm going to come and have a different conversation, right? We'll have one of those transparent ones.
We better stop that then. Yeah.
And this is where I think, having a supplier of choice is good for many, many reasons. If you have a strategic relationship with a supplier, it can take all the noise and pain away around that.
So if you've got quite a good weight then to command that with when you're procuring, to kind of get a better rating from the top.
Yeah, so and it's a conversation we have weekly and monthly and in some instances daily with some of the suppliers, because it's ultimately helping them make a better product as well. If a part's coming back regularly, because we track the type of part that's coming back,
it's going to affect the garage's confidence, isn't it?
Exactly, yeah, and it's going to impact their volume. And ultimately, like I said, we're the vessel to get the part from them to you. So if we're sending a number of parts back, they need to be aware of it. And if they keep saying no, it's not, then guess what? We'll stop buying that part.
Yeah, damage the brand, isn't it? That part, yeah.
And ultimately, it's damaging our brand, and then it's our, it's our relationship with you. So no one wins in that. And to be fair to our supply chain, most manufacturers are really receptive to feedback, and are quite happy to support what we're talking about. So when I talk about warranty and a part coming back and it is absolutely failed due to a manufacturing fault, they'll support that labour. Yeah. It's just we've got to be that vessel between to say, oh yeah, we are getting a lot from that garage, not that part. It's that garage, so we'll manage that. And that's where your training piece comes in. So rather than fall out with the garage, we'll say that you keep having an issue on that product group or that brand, or can we send someone in to do a bit of training? Or can we witness what you're doing?
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
and that's
that's an awkward conversation.
Fitting these for 50 years.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
What was you going to say, Leo?
Like questions back to the garage. So
no, the previous one. Not.
I can't remember.
What
you
are the main right? So you back to our way then.
Yeah.
How can a garage really piss off a part supplier? What garages do you have?
Other than price.
Raring to go there, wasn't it?
Right.
Hold my drink. Yeah. Do you know what? The biggest frustration, I guess, from our point of view is just the lack of preparation that a garage does.
Oh, I need this part now.
Like
sort of thing.
We treat 95% of our orders as ambulance orders. Everything is needed now.
Yep.
Yet, I'm going to guess a number. Over 80% of what you have downstairs in your workshop was booked in 24, 48, 72 hours ago.
Yeah, it's the day before.
Right.
Yeah.
So why can't you order and prepare a service kit, or and we'll deliver the day before. So for when the vehicle comes, you've got everything you need.
We do that.
See?
How does it compare to Europe?
We're terrible.
Really?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
It's just completely spoiled market.
We're
good at passing the problem, aren't we?
And do you know what? That's where it comes from. So, in Europe, over 70% of orders in the main are placed electronically through a GMS platform or whatever else, and it's then done by the garage. Over 70%.
Compared to
UK, which is less than 20%.
Wow.
Okay, so we've got a big gap there.
Yeah.
And the main reason, if we're all being really honest, is
lazy.
Yeah, but if I look it up and then it's wrong, who can I shout at?
And I can't tell them how urgent it is over an online order.
Yeah,
but then does that also stem from then those systems not being up scratch?
Well, there is that. So we need to play our part in making sure that it's easy to order online. I think ourselves and other GMS portals there are making it a lot easier now. But it comes to that confidence. When I press that send button, has my order been received? So now we've got a track my orders. You can see that a bit like the Domino's Pizza wheel, right? Domino's Pizza have killed Pizza Hut online because of that whole customer journey. So we've done something similar, just without a pizza as a fan.
It's so moist, stop from the pizza.
Exactly. And I think for me, one of the frustrations we have is everybody wants everything now, whereas actually if the planning was done and we were able to send a service kit before the car got there, when you get the vehicle in, if it just needs a service kit, you're fine. If it needs something urgent, you need pads, disc, clutch, whatever it may be that comes in, you ring us, we can treat it as urgent, and we've got the vans resource sitting there.
It's like crying wolf, isn't it? If it's always an emergency,
it's like
then
111 or 999, isn't it?
Yeah, and this isn't a feel sorry for me, a pity party on us.
We don't feel sorry for you, Tom.
Yeah,
exactly.
But it does help all of us.
Yeah.
Because there is times where you'll need a service kit for a vehicle that you've had booked in for 3 weeks, and there's a delay for whatever reason. Well, that was avoidable from the point of the vehicle being booked in, and I'm not passing the buck. We need to do what we say we'll do, but there's just life, right? There could be an accident on the way. There could be a whole host of different things, road closures, whatever else. We've had drivers call in sick. There are a number of things that let's help each other on this, so that when you do genuinely need something, it's there.
When you've done DMSs, when you book a car in, you tick a box that says, order these parts for me, please. And then the supplier can look at your future bookings.
Really?
No, that's what we need.
That's clever.
And that's what we need.
Oh, that's the feature we need.
It is. And also, I think from our point of view, in the past, and I think we're getting past this, the fear factor was, well, if I order it and I don't need it, I'm never going to get my credit for it. Whereas actually now, systemically, with our system, when the driver picks it up, it's an auto credit.
Oh, right. Okay,
So
I didn't
it'll go on
realise
your
that.
account anyway.
Oh, right.
So,
like Amazon, when you drop some parcels at the post office, it's credited.
Yeah, it's done, yeah. And this is where it's interesting for us. So it comes back to the branch and the box is empty.
I was going to say that really does leave you exposed.
Oh, no, we are. I'm monitoring your account.
It's mainly injectors.
But that's part of the us making it easier to transact, and that's on us. So I think we're doing our bit. We can always do more, but I think the aftermarket and the independent workshops, you're getting better at planning because you have to, because your jobs are pre-planned. So take the next step now. When you know a car's coming in Friday and we're sitting here today on Wednesday,
just order the parts.
Yeah,
fair enough. Right. What's the last topic?
What's the last topic?
Was it? So back over to you then. Do you have any questions for us, I guess? Or anything else that you want to discuss or speak about?
The one question I wanted to sort of, I guess, chuck out to both of you as an open question is, how do you think we can help you better? And I'm going to ask you to answer on behalf of the whole of the aftermarket independent workshops.
Oh, God. You've answered all these questions without any foresight, and you've asked me one question. I can't answer it. What can you do to help us? I think, if we speak specifically about Lindley's, we've been on this entire journey between being all about price and then, we used to shop around, and then we've been led through various partner-supplier relationships, and LKQ is our latest one, but we've been with all of the other suppliers, and every now and again you have a change, and that's that's just part and parcel of running a business. So we're fully bought in and invested in having a strong relationship with a primary supplier, and then reaping all the benefits that come along with that. So we get a nice rebate, we've got stretch targets, and we've got all of that works. And if something does go wrong, there are people that I can pick the phone up to, and it just gets sorted out. Where I wouldn't have that if we didn't have that sort of strong relationship. But so I think for Lindley's, I think that if you have that sort of relationship, I don't think there's much more really that we need from that. It's working really well. From an industry perspective, and I've said this previously, and I don't know how you do this, because you do have quite you have good business training available, and you have all of your online portals, and you are putting a lot into it. But I feel like the industry as a whole needs more focus on business and less focus on technical. And I'm not talking about the garages that are potentially even listening to this podcast, because if you listen to this podcast, the odds are that you're connected to people and you're in the community and you're learning as it is. But there's a lot of garages out there that are completely on their own, completely disconnected. I don't know how you'd approach them and tell them that you need to go on this business course to know what you do. But I also don't know who else has that opportunity. Aside from the big part suppliers who are directly in relationship with these garages out on their own on a daily basis, we need all of those people to be better at business and get the labour rates up and start earning the money that they should be earning.
Yeah, I was going to mention that when we're talking about the price, shopping around for price, because naturally, if you can buy something for £3 cheaper, it's £3 cheaper, right? That's your initial, not uneducated, but you know what I mean? That the basic view, whereas the bigger picture thing,
it's a very logical view, isn't it?
Yeah, and I remember when I first started, it was like, yeah, because I've just made an extra £3 there. But when you're looking at the bigger picture, but that's only going to come from experience and learnings and training, isn't it? So that whole rebate thing might blow a lot of people's minds, but actually kind of sitting down and going through it, making people understand things.
Yeah, it's a no-brainer, isn't it? So what are we asking for you? To utilise your network leverage, or the odds are that either you or one of the other big suppliers speaks to more garages than anyone else on a daily basis. So use that network to try and inspire business owners to connect with other garage owners and get some business training. That benefits everybody.
What One Tech's about, isn't it, really? That's the main...
But how many people can One Tech have in it, really?
Yeah. So,
maximum?
Yeah.
500, 600, 1,000?
Yeah.
I don't know.
About 600, yeah.
How many garages are there? How many garages do you have on your books?
Yeah, about 27,000.
27,000 garages.
Yeah.
It's very easy for us to sit, we rub shoulders with some amazing businesses and garages and garage owners and business people, but you don't appreciate how many out there are still operating on paper, still operating at less than £50 an hour.
And also don't have the time to train.
No, so I don't know. Are we asking you the impossible? Probably, but you're also the best place to actually do something properly about it.
Yeah, and to be honest, we take that really seriously. We do have the reach that a lot of people would love to have, and it's not just LKQ, Euro Car Parts. Other factors have a lot of reach, right? But I think we know we talk to more customers every day than anyone else.
Yeah.
And it's ultimately, how do we get them to listen to something other than quoting?
I was going to say the biggest thing is people that don't want to know. So there's no point in even trying, is there?
Well, I think what we've done,
but there was a stage where we didn't want to know.
We've always watched progress and know more.
What I mean is, go back 10 years. I didn't know anyone. We didn't speak to anyone. We didn't do any training. We weren't in any forums. We just did it our way and thought we were doing a great job. And if someone rang me up and said, you can do better than what you're currently doing, I think even we would have taken that as a bit like...
That could be as simple as on your flight, special offers, QR code to join us from Facebook group and just make people aware there are communities out there, isn't it?
I think that's
maybe they should push this podcast for all their channels.
Well, I mean, that's a good point. Look, I'm very conscious that I'm here representing LKQ Euro Car Parts, but I'm also passionate. You're
really well trained at saying LKQ Euro Car Parts. You must get sick of saying. You need a better acronym for that.
I have one, but I'm not allowed to use it.
Okay.
But no, I've been in the industry, pretty much all my working life, and when you see what independent workshops aren't doing and the things they are undervaluing, and the fact that they're not prepared to have that conversation with you because you've got an LKQ Euro Car Parts logo on your shirt, I'm not there to fleece you, right? I'm not. I'm there. We are there to support you, and that's not just me. That's our branch team. That we've got 250 odd branches across the UK that are dealing with thousands of customers every day, and a high percentage of them see that as a transaction. We need to get to a point where it's seen as a partnership. Now, that doesn't mean we're going to then see you as a partner and we charge you more. No, it just means we can actually have a transparent conversation, and your problems become our problems. Because if you don't share that and you don't help us try and fix your problem, what I think everyone in the independent aftermarket needs to understand, they don't have to, but would be nice to, is if we get made aware of these problems, if we fix it for you, we can share the solution with thousands of workshops at the same time. If we're not having this transparent conversation across a wider range of customers and we only talk to the same 1,000,
what are you actually doing about that, though?
So as part of our LKQ Academy, we have now got a business course in there. That's brand new, that we've never had before, because it's always been around fitting or diagnostics, or we've now got
technical.
a two-day business course. It's very similar and runs along the Andy Sava course that's there, and we're partnered with Andy Sava to promote Andy Sava. Andy Sava's way of working and his courses are fantastic.
Yeah.
And we've tried to replicate that by using Andy Sava and bringing him under the LKQ Academy to get it out there. The hardest thing, though, is, like you say, is getting people to make that first step to sign up to a business
I think the biggest
course.
problem is, and I've said this recently, when you're looking at some garages and, if you're looking at buying a garage, for example, and looking at what money they're making, I think a lot of people don't realize, and then you've got other garages completely making 4 times as much, and I think that is just because people don't realise what the opportunity is, and that's the biggest thing. If people know that they could be aiming for that, then they'll probably work towards it, but the fact they don't even know that's a possibility is the...
Yeah, and the other thing,
they might be just on a semi-decent income stroke salary and think that's what I get for being a garage owner.
They think that, was a technician earning this, I'm now earning a bit more.
I'm earning double.
So, it's fine,
Yeah, and I think the other thing that we're really conscious of is the One Tech concept that we've got now working with. When you're part of that network and you're having conversations, it's almost can sometimes feel like a bit of a counselling session.
Big time.
Give us your problems.
Yeah.
And we're hearing things through having that one tech group that we hadn't even thought of. But actually, we've got solutions. We might not have them live, but we can go and get them. And rather than that being the independent workshop owner's problem, it's now our problem. They've made their problem our problem, which then means we can find the solution that we can share with the industry. So, with the reach we've got, like you said, I think we are always receptive to feedback, good, bad, indifferent. But ultimately, we're there to support and keep the aftermarket growing, because without the aftermarket, there is no LKQ Euro car parts, and it's as black and white as that. So I think working more strategically together, having more transparent conversations, what's good, what's bad, with your local branch helps us all. But it's
communication.
It really is, and this is why I started at the beginning with that being comfortable, being uncomfortable, because all of a sudden I might have been dealing with you in the local branch for the last 5 years, and I've never asked you a question.
Yeah.
Now I need to be comfortable being uncomfortable that now I'm going to ask you a question that you could turn around and go.
But sometimes it takes that one question, and that can change the trajectory of that garage owner. It's like, oh, you know what? No, I've not actually ever looked at my costs.
Do you ever survey all the garages at all?
Yeah, so we do. We did one about 3 months ago.
I didn't get a question.
No, we're very selective. No, you should have.
You get the answers you want to hear.
We know the 10 garages we're asking. But yeah, we do.
No, we probably did get one, to be fair.
You definitely would have. But you did it with all of our other bits of communication.
Yeah.
But we do survey our customers, and it's not necessarily just on our performance and what we can do. It's around what they're finding, what they need help with, and everything else. So
you're on your next survey, put labour rate.
Okay.
Just out of curiosity.
I'm more than happy to run our next survey back by you before we send it out.
Yeah,
Honestly, it's a survey for us, but it's a large part of it is a survey for the workshops.
So why don't you do a survey just for the benefit of the garages?
Okay.
Literally just asked a few, put a few questions together.
So
I don't know what the outcome. I don't know what you do with that, but
I think that's a great idea, and I would happily do it. My response though is, would the garages answer honestly with us asking it?
Yeah, that is going to be a. Yeah,
you have to ask Quinton. He knows how to run a survey.
Yeah, I know. Get tapped into his
well,
garages. And he sounds so much better on the podcast than I do, having that French.
He looks better as well.
Yeah, you got this Swindonian accent coming through. I heard that.
Yeah, good. It's true. I guess that wraps us up then. That's an hour and a half. That is a long podcast. We've been speaking for some time. You can talk, can't you? Yeah.
Hour and a half.
Sorry, John.
Hour and a half. Yeah. No, really good. I found that really interesting. I guess unless there's anything else we want to add, I guess that wraps us up then.
Thank you for having me on. I
enjoyed that. That was
really
good.
enjoyed
Flowed
listening
well
on the last ones, and let LKQ Euro Car Parts. We are here to support the aftermarket. So anything you guys need.
Were you told to say that? You got to sign off with that.
Never, mate.
Closing statement.
Yeah, you got it in there.
Hey, we're here
Brownie
for you.
points. Right, thank you. Really appreciate you taking the time out. It's a good old drive for you. So yeah, hope you enjoyed it. If you've got any questions, then please get them in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, follow, etc. And we'll see you on the next one.
Cheers.
Thank you. Cheers.